It was supposed to be a normal day on the set of The Chosen. Cameras were rolling, crew members were busy adjusting lights, and actors were preparing to step into their roles. But then, out of nowhere, something terrifying happened. Dallas Jenkins, the creator and director of the series, suddenly found himself in the middle of a scary accident that shocked everyone on set. In just a few seconds, what had been a calm and controlled production turned into chaos. And for fans of The Chosen, the news spread like wildfire. Dallas Jenkins has been hurt. This wasn't just any behind-the-scenes mishap. It was a moment that could have changed everything for the man behind one of the most. The Chosen isn't just a television show. It's a cultural movement. Since its launch, the series has touched millions of viewers all over the world. Unlike many Hollywood productions, it was built with the support of everyday people who believed in the story and wanted to see it come to life. At the heart of this show is one man, Dallas Jenkins. He isn't only the director, he is the creative mind who shaped this entire project. Without him, The Chosen wouldn't exist. Dallas grew up around filmmaking, and his dream was always to create stories that inspire hope and faith. When he started The Chosen, many thought it was impossible to make a large-scale biblical series outside of the traditional Hollywood system. But through persistence, prayer, and the help of loyal fans, the show became a reality. Today, it's recognized as the first multi-season series about the life of Jesus, and it continues to gain attention worldwide. On set, Dallas is more than just a director. He's the leader, the motivator, and the person the entire cast and crew look to for guidance. His presence is what gives the team confidence to push forward, even during the toughest filming days. That's why when the accident happened, it wasn't just another workplace injury. It was a direct hit to the very heart of the production. Imagine the energy of the set before that moment. Lights glowing, cameras in position, and actors waiting in costume. Every person there knew that time was valuable and every shot had to count. Filming isn't easy. It takes long hours, intense concentration, and endless coordination. And yet, despite all the planning, accidents can happen in the blink of an eye. Dallas Jenkins never expected that he would be the one in danger. Directors usually stand behind the camera, guiding the action and giving instructions. But in this case, one small oversight, one small shift in timing, changed everything. The crew had no idea that the day would end in panic, rushing toward Dallas instead of away from him, as they tried to save their director from harm. For those who know Dallas, his accident was more than just physical. It was emotional too. This wasn't just about one man's injury. It was about the possibility of the entire project being shaken at its core. What would happen to The Chosen if Dallas couldn't continue? What would it mean for the millions of fans waiting for the next season? Those questions hung heavy in the air as the reality of the accident set in. This was no small slip or stumble. It was a moment that froze the entire set, leaving everyone shocked and worried. And yet what followed showed just how much strength, faith, and determination Dallas Jenkins carries within him. Inspiring shows of our time. The day had started like any other on The Chosen set. Crew members were laughing between takes, actors were running through lines, and Dallas Jenkins was walking across the stage, checking every detail. He always had this routine, making sure the scene looked perfect before shouting, "Action." But on this day, something went horribly wrong. The accident didn't arrive with a warning. There was no sound of danger approaching, no hint that something was about to go off balance. It was sudden, sharp like a bolt out of nowhere. One moment Dallas was watching a scene unfold and the next, chaos erupted. A large piece of set equipment, heavy and dangerous, slipped from its secured position. It came crashing down with frightening speed, heading straight into the area where Dallas stood. The crew's voices shifted from calm instructions to panicked shouts. Someone yelled his name. Others dropped what they were holding and ran. The sound of metal striking the ground echoed across the set, sending a chill through everyone. Cameras stopped rolling instantly. All focus turned to Dallas. In that moment, the entire production froze, as if time itself was holding its breath. Dallas was hit, hard enough to knock him back, leaving people gasping in shock. The silence that followed was unbearable. Crew members who seconds earlier had been adjusting props now rushed to his side. Someone called out for first aid, another shouted for the medic on set. The actors, still in costume, didn't move. They just stared, stunned by what they were seeing. Imagine it. The director, the man everyone looked to for guidance, now lying on the ground in pain. A man who had spent years building this project suddenly became the center of an emergency. The set that once felt alive and full of purpose now felt heavy with fear. For Dallas, those seconds must have felt like hours. He tried to move, tried to shake off the weight of what had just happened, but his body didn't respond the way it should. The crew crouched around him, speaking softly, urging him not to push himself too hard. Cameras that once captured stories of faith and hope were now pointed away, forgotten, as reality became scarier than any scripted moment. Some people cried quietly, others paced back and forth, unsure of what to do. Even though accidents can happen on any film set, this one felt different. This wasn't just a minor mishap. It was serious, and it was happening to the person who mattered most to the project. The moments after the crash carried a heavy weight. No one dared to say it out loud, but the thought was there. What if Dallas can't continue? What if this is worse than it looks? That single thought hung over everyone, more frightening than the noise of the fall itself. Dallas had given everything to this show. Every sleepless night, every decision, every piece of himself had been poured into The Chosen. And now, in one terrifying instant, all of it felt fragile. The fate of the series, the dream he had fought so hard to bring to life, suddenly seemed uncertain. But while the accident left everyone shaken, it also revealed something deeper. Because in the middle of fear, Dallas began to show a strength that surprised even those closest to him. He was hurt, yes, but his eyes still carried that determination that fans around the world have come to know. And that, more than anything, would set the stage for what happened next. For a few seconds, no one moved. The clang of metal hitting the floor still echoed in the ears of everyone on set. And Dallas Jenkins lay there in silence. It was as if the world had hit pause. The cameras, the lights, the actors, all frozen. A production built on careful planning was suddenly swallowed by chaos. Then came the rush. Crew members dropped their clipboards and tools, sprinting toward him. The sound of running footsteps filled the stage. Someone yelled, "Call 911!" while another shouted, "Don't move him!" A hush of fear swept over the actors watching from the sidelines, their eyes wide, their mouths covered in disbelief. Dallas tried to move, tried to push himself up, but pain shot through his body, forcing him to collapse back down. A groan escaped his lips, low, but enough to crush the hearts of everyone around him. To see the director, the man who always stood tall, always in control, struggling on the ground was a shock too big to process. One assistant knelt beside him, holding his shoulder gently, whispering, "Stay still, Dallas. We're here. Don't move." Another crew member fumbled with their phone, trying to give details to emergency responders. A medic rushed from the corner of the set with a small kit, kneeling fast, checking his breathing, checking his pulse. The noise of filming had been replaced with the noise of fear. Hurried voices, quick instructions, heavy breathing, and then the silence. The kind of silence that makes your chest tighten. Every single person was waiting for one thing: to know if he was okay. The actors, still in costume, stood frozen against the backdrop of ancient sets meant to look like the time of Jesus. But right now, the biblical world had disappeared, replaced with the raw reality of a man in pain. Time stretched. Every second felt like a minute. Some crew members exchanged panicked glances, afraid to say out loud what they feared. What if this is serious? What if filming stops? What if Dallas can't go on? The set, once alive with creativity, was now a battlefield of emotions. Dallas, weak but conscious, forced himself to speak. His voice was faint, but it carried weight. "I'm okay. I'll be okay," he whispered, trying to comfort the crew more than himself. But the look on his face told another story. He wasn't okay, not yet, and deep down, everyone knew it. The medic worked quickly, stabilizing him, checking for fractures, checking for bleeding. A stretcher was called in. Watching Dallas, Their leader, their captain, being carefully lifted, was something the crew never thought they'd witness. Some had tears streaming down their faces, others clenched their fists, desperate for answers. In that moment, the accident stopped being just about Dallas. It became about the entire team. Every cast member, every camera operator, every assistant, they all felt the blow. Because The Chosen wasn't just Dallas's project anymore. It was theirs too. And seeing their director in pain felt like watching a family member collapse. The filming lights dimmed. The cameras remained untouched. The entire production had come to a halt. The only focus now was Dallas Jenkins, hurt, fragile. The stretcher had barely touched the ground when Dallas, pale but conscious, motioned for the medic to pause. His body was hurting, but his spirit refused to stay silent. The crew leaned in, waiting, hoping he'd say something, anything, that would let them breathe again. His voice was quiet at first, but steady, filled with that familiar tone everyone knew from long nights on set. "Listen to me," he said, his chest rising slowly with each breath. "Don't panic. I'm not going anywhere." Those words hung in the air like a lifeline. Crew members, who moments earlier had been drowning in fear, suddenly felt something shift. His humor flickered through the pain, a small smile breaking across his face as he added, "And if you think this accident's gonna stop me, you don't know me very well." It was vintage Dallas, turning fear into reassurance, taking control even when he was the one who needed saving. The medic urged him to stay quiet, but Dallas shook his head gently. He wasn't just talking for himself. He was talking for his team, for the cast, and for the millions of fans who would soon hear about this moment. He closed his eyes briefly, then whispered something that reminded everyone why The Chosen existed in the first place. "God's got this," he said. 3 simple words, but they carried the weight of faith, hope, and determination. And just like that, the atmosphere on set changed. The fear didn't disappear completely, but it loosened its grip. People wiped their eyes, nodded to each other, and took a deep breath. Dallas wasn't just responding to an accident. He was leading in the middle of it. He cracked a joke with the medic about being a terrible patient. He asked if the cameras were still safe, as though the show's equipment mattered more than his injury. And he looked into the worried eyes of his crew and reminded them, this is just a setback, not the ending. In those fragile minutes, Dallas showed the very same strength that makes The Chosen powerful. His response wasn't scripted, but it might as well have been, because it embodied everything he had poured into the series: resilience, faith, and the courage to keep going even when the odds seem overwhelming. By the time he was gently lifted and guided toward further medical care, the crew no longer looked shattered. Yes, they were shaken. Yes, they were still worried. But they had also been reminded of something larger than themselves. Their leader was down but not defeated. And if Dallas could face this moment with faith and calm, then so could they. For Dallas Jenkins, this accident was more than an injury. It was a test of his body, his spirit, and his mission. And in the very first moments of response, he had already passed. The news didn't stay on set for long. Word of Dallas's accident spread faster than anyone expected. First it was whispers among crew families, then quiet phone calls, and soon it spilled onto social media. By the time the sun had set, fans around the world were already typing, posting, and praying. What began as a frightening incident on a quiet filming lot became a global moment of unity. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, posts began to flood in. Praying for Dallas Jenkins tonight. God's protection over the man behind The Chosen. People who had never met Dallas wrote as though they were defending a friend. It wasn't just sympathy, it was personal. For many fans, The Chosen wasn't just a TV show, it was a source of hope in their darkest days. They had watched Dallas pour his heart into every episode, and now, seeing him in pain, they felt that same ache. Prayer groups formed overnight. Churches dedicated services to lifting him up. In living rooms across America, families bowed their heads, asking God to protect the director whose work had touched their hearts. Messages poured into the official pages, thousands of comments stacked under a single post. Some were simple: "Get well soon." Others were long: Heartfelt stories. People who had battled illness, loss, or fear, writing to Dallas that his show had carried them through, and now they wanted to carry him. One fan from Brazil wrote, "Your work gave me strength during my darkest days. Now it's our turn to give you strength." Another from the Philippines posted a video with friends holding candles, singing a hymn in his honor. It was as if the entire world turned into one giant support system, stretching across languages, cultures, and time zones. The internet, so often a place of anger and division, suddenly became a place of unity, filled with kindness for one man who had dedicated his life to telling stories of faith. Even celebrities and faith leaders who admired The Chosen joined in. Pastors shared updates from the pulpit. Musicians dedicated songs during live shows. Influencers recorded videos urging their followers to keep Dallas in their prayers. What started as a single accident became a testimony of community. And here's the remarkable part. Dallas saw it. From his hospital bed, surrounded by uncertainty and discomfort, he glanced at the flood of messages on his phone. His wife read some of them aloud. His eyes watered, not from the pain of the accident, but from the overwhelming realization that he wasn't alone. Millions of people he would never meet face to face, had chosen to stand with him. The outpouring of love didn't erase the injury, but it built a cushion of strength. For Dallas, it was confirmation that The Chosen wasn't just a show people watched. It was a family people belonged to. The accident may have shaken the set, but the fans turned it into something bigger. A movement of compassion, support, and unshakable faith. In that moment, Dallas Jenkins wasn't just a director anymore. He was a man being carried by the prayers of millions, and that in itself became a story far more powerful than any script could write. Accidents have a strange way of opening our eyes. One moment, everything feels secure, controlled, perfectly planned. And the next, life reminds us how fragile it really is. That's what happened on the set of The Chosen. Dallas Jenkins' accident wasn't just a scare for the crew. It was a mirror held up to all of us. Think about it. Here was a man at the height of his purpose. He had a cast, a crew, millions of fans watching his every move. He was in the middle of creating a story that has inspired people around the world. And yet in one blink, he was on the ground, vulnerable, shaken, and reminded that no one is untouchable. But this is where the bigger message comes alive. Because Dallas didn't let the accident become the headline of his story. He turned it into a testimony. His calm words, "I'm not going anywhere and God's got this," weren't just comfort for the crew. They were a reminder for anyone listening. Faith is strongest when life feels weakest. This moment on set was more than a fall. It was a lesson that no matter how carefully we plan our lives, setbacks will come. No matter how strong we think we are, something unexpected can knock us off our feet. But what defines us isn't the fall, it's how we rise. Dallas's response wasn't about pretending everything was fine. It was about facing fear with courage and letting faith guide the way forward. For the cast and crew, the message was clear. The Chosen wasn't just about actors, cameras, or scripts. It was about resilience, about telling a story that reflects real life, where struggles exist, but hope always speaks louder. For the fans, it was a wake-up call too. If the director they admire can face such a terrifying moment with grace, maybe they can face their own challenges with that same courage. And maybe that's why this story resonates so deeply. It's not just about a man on a film set. It's about every one of us. How many times have we been blindsided by something we didn't expect? A sudden illness, a broken relationship, a lost job, a moment that makes the world feel uncertain. Dallas's accident, in its raw reality, reminds us that life can shift in an instant. But so can faith. Because faith isn't about avoiding accidents. It's about standing back up after them. It's about realizing that even when the world shakes, purpose doesn't vanish. That's what Dallas showed his team, and that's what his story now shows us. In the end, the bigger message isn't about fear or fragility. It's about strength. The kind of strength that comes not from control, but from surrender. Not from pretending we're invincible, but from trusting that even in our weakest moments, There is a reason to keep moving forward, and maybe that's the story we'll remember most. Not the accident itself, but the faith, the courage, and the unshakable will that came after. The cameras eventually turned back on, the crew regrouped, and Dallas Jenkins, though shaken and bruised, made it clear: the story of the chosen would not be stopped by one accident. If anything, the moment became a symbol, proof that behind every scene of triumph, there are real battles, real risks, and real strength. Dallas's accident could have been a disaster. It could have left the set broken, the crew scattered, and the show on pause. But instead, it became something else. It became a reminder that this project is bigger than any one man. It's a story that lives in the hearts of the cast, the crew, and the millions of fans who refuse to let it die. And maybe that's the most powerful truth of all. Because while Dallas is the director, the chosen belongs to all of us. Every prayer, every word of support, every fan who shares the message. That's what keeps the story alive. The accident didn't end the chosen. It fueled it with even greater purpose. So the question is, what do we take from this? Maybe it's a lesson about resilience. Maybe it's about remembering how quickly life can change and how important it is to hold on to faith when it does. Or maybe it's simply this: one man's courage can ignite hope in millions. As the crew rebuilt, as Dallas recovered, as the cameras prepared to roll again, the message was clear. The story must go on. And so it does. Now it's your turn. What did you feel hearing about this accident? Were you shocked, scared, inspired? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if Dallas Jenkins' story reminded you of the power of faith and courage, let the world know by liking this video and passing it along. Because sometimes the biggest miracles aren't in the episodes we watch. They're in the people who create them. Dallas Jenkins faced a frightening moment, but he walked away with more than just scars. He walked away with proof that even in the hardest times, faith is stronger than fear. And that's a story worth remembering.